Extraction shooters have been on the rise in the past few years. For the hardcore fans, you have Tarkov. For the more casual fans, there's a bunch of different options, but for the likely predominantly Call of Duty-oriented audience here on the channel, even COD has allowed players to dip their toes into the extraction shooter genre with DMZ this past year, which for many may have been the best part about Modern Warfare 2. But with DMZ past its year of support and no longer being supported going into the future, maybe Tarkov's still a bit too hardcore for you, but you still want to have those high-stake action sequences of getting in, getting out, and the thrill of whatever storyline comes along with each deployment. Well, there might just be another game on the horizon here for you. This is Gray Zone Warfare, developed by Madfinger Games, and it's a game that's more than just an extraction shooter. Like, sure, if you want to put it just in one box of you loot up, extract, sure, it's an extraction shooter, but there's the potential for so much more, and looks to be one of the most promising tactical shooters that we've seen to date, with a genuine world built from the ground up for it. So far, not a whole ton of raw gameplay has been shown off, but I've chatted with the studio's comms lead and gotten a breakdown of what looks to be upcoming, and there's some pretty cool stuff. So let's start out on the basic and work our way into the more hardcore nature, as we would in the world of Gray Zone Warfare. Now, this is fundamentally based upon the Russian novel Roadside Picnic, which, without going too far in depth with it all and the cultural impacts with it, was the source for many things like the Stalker games that we may be most familiar with here as gamers. However, again, that's the source material. It's not based off that. It doesn't follow any of the same supernatural elements of that, but instead, Gray Zone follows the same ideological foundation of the incident creating a quarantine and zone off limits to all but those that are called stalkers, those that still trek into those forbidden zones. That's where things kind of fundamentally start, in the Democratic Republic of Lemang, a republic in Southeast Asia where official channels spoke of an unspecified environmental disaster which closed off this no-entry zone. In the game's lore, there's said to be plenty of theories from volcanoes erupting, a chemical factory explosion, a nuke going off, a satellite crashing, secret experimentation, a meteorite impact, or even aliens. But it's said that the players will have to find out the true events for themselves. But whatever happened, the UN evacuated the island and then began the pirates, crime syndicates, and even PMCs to establish their own footholds in the region, all looting and advancing towards that ground zero epicenter of the event where the highest loot tiers are. Now, as for the gameplay itself, well, you'll firstly have PMC factions here that you'll be playing as. You are a recruit for one of these PMC factions. Each faction can have 4 squads of 4 for 16 team members, with 48 players total geared for that entire map. However, at the current point, that goal apparently has not been met just yet. They have not gotten to a full 48 players. That's their end goal, but again, still early-ish in development. There's work to be done, as you'd expect. When you jump into the game, you have a forward operating base, whereas your sort of safe haven or your home base, but it's also where you infill and exfil too. Your starting point as of right now is the only differences between PMC factions in game. Now, in the future, there may be some work done to incentivize further mastery of each with new characters, quest lines, and other things that are exclusive to different PMCs, but as of right now, there is no exclusive character quest or reward, so it really all comes down to just developing that player-driven gameplay loop. You can do what you want, and there's no real sort of limit for what you can do, except the consequences of your own actions, good or bad. And that's going to be something you'll kind of see throughout the overarching mantra of this game. You'll have traders to facilitate missions and quests, as well as granting rewards. In early access, we're likely going to see Artisan, Banshee, and Gunny offering things from like vests and backpacks along with XP to weaponry themselves. You'll be able to go on these quest lines, earn XP as well as rewards, so that every deployment you can continue bettering yourself. Now, one thing that is mentioned here about this game is that there's no real linear quest line here for this. There's not going to be anything that really handholds you throughout this, which is definitely cool for some players, maybe not approachable for some others, but it's something that allows you to explore and encourages exploring the map and the world of Lemang. The core gameplay experience when you infill, though, is going to be predominantly based on PvPvE, though you might want to switch that around because it might be PvEVP, because player versus player might be a sort of afterthought here because, well, as you'll see in a second, well, the AI is going to be your main obstacle for sure in the environment. But while there are real players, there will never be quests to progress your game that require you to kill another player. You can absolutely kill another PMC and take all their gear, but that is all entirely player driven. Obviously, there's conflicting factions in the world that are all after the same stuff. It makes sense if you want to do that, but you're not required to do that. It's also planned to have 1,000 AI on any server at any given time. So you're going to be encountering AI and PvE elements big time, which is where I just mentioned like the PvE might be a better element here with it, with PvP mixed in there, because you're not going to see 1,000 different real players. Now, in the world, similar to what we have with, say, Call of Duty Zombies for comparison, the closer to the center of the map you get, that's where the hotter zones come into play. It's right now tiered from zones 1 through 5 with different types of AI along the way, and of course, higher level loot the further into the map you get. Now, what's nice is that it appears that all the AI will have the same health. You're not going to have any damage sponges here instead, but the differences in tiers or difficulty come down to various gear sets, how they approach combat, and so on and so forth. So, for example, like an untrained pirate versus an AI merc who knows their way around tactical combat. Obviously, it's still going to take 1 headshot, 2 headshots if they have like a helmet or something like that to end up taking them down, but at the same time, it's going to be a much harder combat sequence if you end up going into those tier 5 zones. Now, there doesn't appear to be any time limit that I've seen so far on this, so you can take your sweet old time if you'd like, get in and get out whenever you want, but that's something that, again, might still be a gray zone with this. The health systems, though, seem absurdly complex, but still also brought down to a point where, I mean, it's a game. You need to make it approachable for players. You don't want to make it something where it is too complex for no one to even understand it, but it's not as straightforward as just take damage, heal, or die. Instead, bullets can create, say, cavities in a chest. They can break bones, compared to how real-life wounds would, where blood loss can lead to an in-game down or comatose state, where a player will have 2 minutes to revive them, or they die, and other things like that. So there's a lot more that really goes into the health systems here than what we just see in like an arcade shooter. Going along with that, one of the things that is kind of alongside that is there's animations for everything. You see tourniquets, you see ripping open food packages, eating a granola bar, popping a pill, reloading. There seems to be animations for everything, which honestly, I love to see. Like, that's really cool from an artistic perspective. I know that's not everybody's real, like, main focus, and surely it's not. The gameplay loop itself obviously should be, but I love that kind of attention to detail stuff here at that. That, to me, I think is a good indication of a level of passion into that craft and into that project. So, all that said, that's Gray Zone Warfare, but when can you play the game? Right now, there's no intel on a full launch, but you can wishlist it on Steam. It is going to be PC only at this point, so if you'd like to check it out, you can see it on Steam. Q1 of 2024 is the target for early access, meaning that it's not going to be the full game, but there'll be some playable demos here available for it. But right now, that's still, again, just a target. That's not confirmed nor denied. It could be something that's pushed back. Could happen exactly, but the thing that is pretty cool is the base and full game, when released, is going to be a premium game, so you're going to have to pay for it. But for a lot of people, you'll love this next part. There's not any microtransactions. Nothing that requires you to keep swiping your credit card, nothing that impacts the gameplay loop based off of what you can buy. There's nothing like that at all, even remotely in the cards. So it's a traditional game from what we had 10, 15 years ago, if you guys remember that, in regards to how things are packaged, which is pretty cool and pretty refreshing actually in today's day and age. Now, whether or not there's actual like expansions later on down the line, like massive game expansions to supplement revenue and keep the game going and the support going on afterwards, we'll see. But for right now, again, no microtransactions whatsoever. So that said, my overall thoughts on this, I think that this game has a lot of promise. To me, it's a middle ground, but closer to Tarkov, between Tarkov and a ton of other extraction shooters. Obviously, it's hardcore. It's something that's going to be a tactical shooter and something in that regard, where it's going to be something you gotta grind. You might not necessarily want to rush into every single engagement, but it also feels, based off of what we've seen so far, that it may be a bit more forgiving and also more well-rounded compared to Tarkov, given that there's a lot more to do. There's a story-related element to uncovering a mystery, all that kind of stuff that I think can be very cool and beneficial for the game going forward. I like that since the very beginning, not only has the studio and representatives reached out to myself and other creators for feedback, like they hit me up 2 months ago to see if I wanted to learn more, and the entire time were insanely enthusiastic about sharing their product here with everyone. I feel bad that honestly, up to this point, I haven't had the opportunity to talk about this game because it looks really cool. I've gotten some updates on the game throughout that time, and I'm excited for it. Like, I am looking forward to seeing this thing through its development and playing it whenever we get some hands-on opportunity. I just hadn't had the scheduled time through a COD launch and everything here with launch and then a Season 1 and Warzone launch that we just didn't have the opportunity to talk about it just yet. But not only do I love the fact that they're being optimistic about the game, seeking feedback from creators, but they're also doing that with the general community as well. They're building the game with building a community in tandem. I think that is awesome. Community built games are awesome in my opinion because you find your niche audience, you build it out for them, they're happy, and then it can expand outwards beyond that. I think that's an awesome way to build a game. XDefiant here is trying to do that, and I think has done a very good job of that, even though it's not necessarily launched just yet, but it's the same sort of design element and principle to how you approach making a game. I'm a huge fan of that community aspect they're trying to build and love that they've been adamant about no large-scale marketing budget either. They'd rather every single dollar possible go into making the game the best that it possibly can be. And to that, I think that's an awesome way to do it. Just heads down, work on your product, let it speak for itself. Now, to me, though, the biggest thing is, well, yes, we are still missing genuine gameplay. As I've mentioned, and as you've probably seen through the cycling footage, we don't have a lot on hand right now other than just some hand-picked sequences of what the game will look like in-engine, in actual gameplay environments. But, I mean, it's like 2 minutes total. There's not a whole ton here at this, and if you are somebody that is wary, I understand. I mean, we just saw what happened with the scam, I'm sorry, the day before, where that game was a literal scam. It was for years strung along, and it was something that promised to be this big, new, genre-defining, innovative game. But I mean, that studio closed its doors a week after the game launched because it was that bad. It was that incomplete, and it was, again, just a way to kind of take everybody's money, it seemed like. I get that there is absolutely some genuine concern in regards to the indie space right now, and I get it. So I'd love to see more gameplay here upcoming. I'm hoping that in the very early portions of 2024, we have some either raw gameplay revealed by Madfinger themselves, whether there's some sort of content creator briefing where they give hands-on and show just brief demos that can then be translated then into gameplay videos for people to see. I don't know what, but I just like to see more of this game for sure. But I'm definitely interested in following along in the development here and more content upcoming where possible. Keeping you guys up to date if you're at all interested in this kind of stuff. But one of the things that I'm honestly perhaps interested in is actually streaming this game. That sounds weird because obviously YouTube is the bread and butter here. I don't stream a whole ton, but there's a reason behind that because I feel like whenever I play a game, I'm either laser focused and want to be doing well, but when I'm streaming, I want to chat with everybody, so I can't be laser focused. So like Warzone, I've taken a step back from streaming Warzone by like tenfold, maybe like 1,000-fold, because back during the pandemic, back whenever we were like in Black Ops Cold War Zero support, I streamed a lot of Warzone and it was something that I really had a good time, but like I just felt like I wasn't giving as much of a sort of one-on-one entertaining product where I couldn't focus on both talking with people and interacting with a chat and playing the game. This is one of those things that, like Tarkov, yeah, there absolutely are going to be those tense moments that people want to see, but there's also going to be a lot of downtime where you're navigating the map or just scavenging stuff where you can talk with people. So to me, that's one of those things that I think is a great middle ground in terms of gameplay makeup, but also, I mean, unlike Tarkov, it's not something that seems to require days and days of playtime to be fully looted to have a better advantage, and also to be there from the very beginning of a game's launch is pretty cool as well. So that's kind of one of the things that I'm looking forward to doing. But anyways, that's where I'm at. That's my overall thoughts, takes, and everything on Gray Zone Warfare and where we're at right now. So let me know your thoughts down below. What do you guys think of this here? Are you looking forward to seeing more of Gray Zone Warfare and the development as we go along? Would you like to see more content on it? Are you going to wishlist it on Steam? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. As well, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to stay updated with all things FPS content like Gray Zone Warfare going forward, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 3, Warzone, XDefiant, other stuff like that. We got you covered as well. I'd love to have you in the community. But for now, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.